We're all a part of the PH. Okay, so I'm streaming. I'm streaming on my channel, but I wasn't streaming on. Streaming on my Ben's channel. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that one more time. Welcome to the Takedown with Nick. I am Nick's, and we're getting ready to do what we do every day, right? Subverting power with radical thought. I have one public service announcement. Today we are streaming both on Ben's channel and my own separate channel. So if you would, please take some time to go ahead and like and subscribe to that channel. And we're going to be bringing you content every time I do a new episode. And it'll also help grow the platform and grow the space so that we can have these kind of conversations. We're all members of the Progressive Army, that platform, and I'm glad to be a part of it. But we're also going to try to, branch out. There's audiences that may be receptive to, what I have to talk about and so forth. So everybody has to have their own space where people can go and just find that specific message. So that's why we're going ahead and growing our platform and doing it the way we're doing it. Today, the title of this is going to be, the crisis of uncertainty. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we are in very uncertain times right now. Like, I would have been the first person to tell you that, Donald Trump provides the most opportunity, meaning there's things shifting around, things reformulating. But I did not agree with, some people like Jimmy Dore, who said he would bring about the apocalypse. And from that apocalypse, we'd be able to, turn the ship around. I believe that things would shift and that things will be more loose and, reforming. But which direction that can take is totally unknown. Like, we just don't know. And at the time, I don't think I talked about propaganda, but I don't think I had what we all should have: a healthy respect for its power. Like, the ability to move and sway and shape the minds of millions of people, overnight on any issue at any time, just at the drop of a hat. That is something that has to be both respected and feared by anybody that's radically trying to transform our political landscape. That is something we all have to cognitively recognize and understand that that's what we have to try to overcome on almost every issue across the board, all the way down. And I think that under this Trump presidency, my fear about how powerful mass propaganda and social control is that I'm watching it. And I see it, like, clearly what's happening. And this is not to say that I have, my finger on the pulse of every human being out there. Maybe, the counter narratives are stronger on the ground. I'm not there. I can't tell you. But here's the problem. There were a lot of demonstrations and marches and things of that nature this weekend. And, there's a lot of resistance going around. But, none of that resistance seems to be largely targeted at a policy. It all seems to be targeted on the personality of Donald Trump. And, I've spoken about this before. We don't need to necessarily attack the person before their personality. Like, we shouldn't be saying, Barack Obama is so cool and he's so fresh. I agree with everything he's doing. And then Donald Trump comes in and does the exact same thing. Oh, Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Yeah, that guy. Ooh, he's just not fit to be president. He's illegitimate. And I'm like, illegitimate? That is a strange claim to levy at somebody who's won the electoral system under the rules that we have and under the way that we allow our electoral system to operate. So I'm wondering, all these people that are resisting, all these people that are protesting, are they all out there? Where were they? The policy hasn't even changed yet. Donald Trump he just got in there. He hasn't done much yet. Where's all this resistance coming from? The policies that are in place right now. What is happening right now in this country was happening last week. It was happening last year. It was happening 4 years before that, 4 years before that, 4 years before that, and 4 years before that, and so on, all the way through, going all the way back to Carter. Where is all this resistance coming from? Where was it? It just poof, showed up, poof, out of nowhere. And I'm like, okay, you know, when you're trying to organize, you know, there's urges you have, right? You have to meet people where they are. And I've been basically schooled on this, and I've gone back and forth on this. You know, you have to meet people where they are. And I understand that. So the fact that people are resisting is still a positive. But now it is incumbent upon all progressives, independent media, all of them to now understand that we have to make sure the energy is channeled in proper places. You know, now we may disagree with what those proper places are, but we have to make sure, we have to make damn sure that energy is not funneled back into neoliberalism. That is something we cannot allow to happen. And I see it happening already. So this is just a warning shot saying, hey, watch out. This is developing and it's looking to be highly problematic. I want to talk about why I'm saying this. And it's basically for us to understand. I just talked about social control and mass propaganda. Now, I want you to put some things in contrast. When Occupy Wall Street was happening, how long did that actually go on before it started to get coverage in the media? And when it got covered, it was mostly negative coverage, right? And how long before the police were out there and they were viciously, brutally cracking down on those protesters, shutting down the camps everywhere. They were changing the laws to make sure they dispersed the people. They were suppressed. Okay. So, you know, that's just kind of what happened with that. Let's move on. When Black Lives Matter, when Ferguson was going on, when there was all these protests around the country about the struggle for Black lives and making sure that these lives matter and that we recognize that, you know, certain lives have mattered and certain lives have not mattered in America, and that has to change. You know, how long were those struggles going on before they really got media attention? And when they got media attention, why was it always focused on riots and destruction, you know, from a small group, and that was used to paint the entire message? And then after a while, they just stopped covering them all together. It's just whatever. You know, those events are still happening. They're not getting coverage. That's how the media works in America. So now we come Trump's inauguration, all the pomp and circumstance, all the discussion of Melania Trump wearing Jackie O, like a Jackie O styled dress, or I don't know what you call that, what she was wearing, that blue thing. You know, I'm not into fashion. I can't tell you, you know, how she looked regal and there was so much decorum. And, you know, there's pictures of people saying which couple looks like they're about something, or which couple, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Like, you don't know these people. Like that's all a sideshow, right? But we move on to some of the resistance to Trump. You have people like Keith Olbermann getting up there and proclaiming himself some sort of resistance leader, and then spouting a whole bunch of bullshit about, you know, Russia doing this and Russia doing that, and just kind of whipping up that almost like a McCarthyism, and just kind of touting the party line. He's supposed to be resistance, you know, but that gets a whole bunch of coverage. But, you know, there are actually real people out there that are struggling, and they don't get coverage. And the point I was trying to start off with before I kind of got lost in my rambling, because I'm trying to lay it all out. The point I'm trying to get across to you is that when you're really out there struggling, when you're really out there trying to subvert power, when you're really out there speaking truth to power, when you're really out there trying to transform something and threaten capital, you don't get media coverage. You don't get 24-hour media coverage. And whatever coverage you get, it's going to be highly negative. And guess who else is going to be there? The police are going to be there, because their job is to protect power. Their job is to enforce power. They're going to be there to shut you down. They're going to be tear gassing you. They're going to be beating you. They're going to be improperly taking people and imprisoning them. They're going to be making people disappear. I'm not saying they're killing them, but, you know, the Chicago black site kind of deal, that's not just something in Chicago. They have that. They have that where they do that to people all the time, you know. And let me add another struggle that wasn't really widely televised. You know, the struggle for no Dakota Access Pipeline, Standing Rock. That struggle was not very well televised. It was all in the media that covered that. Everybody else didn't touch it. And when they did touch it, they didn't have much positive to say about it. All they did was put out misinformation. Which leads me to my final point. When I was watching the news, guess what was all over the news 24/7? that women's march. That women's march was all over the news 24/7. You didn't hear about any violence. You didn't hear about, any kind of police crackdown. Nobody was complaining about that. It's a whole bunch of people, they just showed up, and mysteriously all the speakers were Clinton supporters. Mysteriously, I don't know how that, how that kind of worked out like that, or how that works. A lot of the groups that were organizing it and putting forth a lot of money for it, a lot of those groups are very, neoliberal groups. And there was all these people there, and they were, a lot of people were saying things like, not my president, and Donald Trump has a problem with women. And you know what? Rightfully so. Maybe he does. I don't know, man. I can't tell you. I can only go off of what they've shown me on TV, and I just don't trust it. Don't trust it enough to inform or to root my political opinions on it. But that's neither the point here or there, right? That's just me being a little bit more vigilant because I know what we're up against. But my point is, that stuff was on TV 24/7, positive media coverage all the way. And you know what that tells me? That tells me we need to be careful. Right now, there's so much activism. We're all siloed. Everybody's doing their own thing. And the first thing that's popping up trying to unify is some sort of neoliberal structure. And that's not to say that everybody out there was supporting neoliberalism. That's definitely not to say that. That's not, I'm not trying to make a broad generalization. I'm just saying, before we start getting behind any kind of movement or any kind of popular resistance, we need to have a goal. And that goal needs to be clearly stated. It needs to be clearly shared with everybody. This is our goal, and I feel like, when they were talking about the survival guide, there was a survival guide, some publication put out, and all it was call your congressman. That's it. That's your goal. There was no mention, about labor. There was no mention about any of these things. It was just like, it was like a feel-good session, a massive feel-good session, almost like they were just trying to channel the energy of resistance. Like I've already said, they're just trying to channel it into neoliberalism. And that's a problem. And there's I talk to people all the time. I love to talk to people about politics. I like to hear what they have to say. And even though on my platform, I'm aggressive and I try to be as blunt as possible, when I talk to people that don't necessarily agree with me and I'm trying to find common cause with them, I don't do that. I want to hear what they have to say. And I listen more than I speak. And when I speak, I figure out where they're coming from. And I pinpoint what can be one area where I can get them to question their already held assumption. And that's all I accomplished for one talk. And that may take me an hour, it may take me 2 hours. All I have to do is pull a thread somewhere, get something where I can get them to open up just a little bit. And maybe over time I'll be able to win them over. I don't know. But that process is very tiring and it takes a lot of patience. You can't do it all the time. Sometimes I'm just so tired, I don't have time to engage in that. I don't have time to walk somebody, hold somebody's hand and walk them through knowledge or walk them through how to critically think. Sometimes I just don't have it. But when I do have it, I make sure I use it. And I would encourage everybody who's watching the channel to make sure you do the same. But back to what I was talking about. Again, I'm ranting. We have a problem. I talk to people, and this is going to be a problem I find more from some of the liberal progressives that have been, privileged in a way in one form or another. But when I talk to them about, let's say, racism, we do have a problem with racism in America. And America, racism is just, it's what built the country. It's deeply ingrained in the country, like in every fiber. In its very fiber, there's just strands of racism just twirled all up in there. And it's hard to unravel. But there are people who still don't recognize that that's what it is. And the reason they don't recognize it is because it's everywhere. They get tired of people telling them that it's everywhere because they don't see it, but they can't see it because it's everywhere and it doesn't affect them. So imagine if you were to walk outside and, I don't know, everything is blue. Everything is blue. Everything is blue. And people like you can't see it. I mean, people like you you don't recognize, there's blue. That to me, to you, that's green, or it's just there. It's a color. It's not even didn't have a name, but other people can see it, and they're trying to tell you, no, like everything is blue. It's everywhere, and you're saying, what are you talking about? It's blue, but I just don't see it. That's just what it is. That's everywhere. That's just what it is. And it's like, no, you just can't see it because it's everywhere. You're blind to it because you're so it's just so far. You're so inundated with it. It's almost like you're desensitized to it, and because it doesn't directly affect you, you just can't see it. And I think I kind of botched that analogy there, so forgive me. But that was just me trying to show that sometimes a dominant group may have a blind spot when it comes to addressing racism, and it's just not necessarily because they don't want to see it. It's just because they can't see it. It doesn't affect them. And we live in a country where racism is everywhere and it's just normalized. And there's nothing outside of some kind of personal, there's some sort of personal relationship that they may have that can kind of challenge those conceptions that they have in their head. It's just hard to overcome that. It's hard to get somebody to see what they have lived next to all of their lives and just accept it as the way things are. It's hard for them to see that those things are unjust. And then on top of that, once they recognize that those things are unjust, it's hard for them it's hard to get them to be willing to put forth the effort to correct the injustice. So moving back to my original reason why I was talking before I started to rant. It's my third time apologizing for ranting, but if you've been watching my show, you know that that's kind of how I roll sometimes. Right now, Donald Trump is the root of all evil. Why is that? I mentioned it before, but 4 years ago, the policies were the same. 4 years before that, the policies were the same. 4 years before that, the policies are the same. But right now, America's just in a dark place. It's a dark, dark place in America today. It's just in a dark place. Why? Donald Trump got elected. Okay. All of a sudden, overnight, as soon as he put his hand on the Bible and raised his hand and said that oath or whatnot, I don't even know if they really even do that anymore. I didn't watch that part of the inauguration. I don't know if they do that part for the swearing in or not. But as soon as he did, all of a sudden the ground starts shaking. We have a solar eclipse, and then all of a sudden the wind starts blowing, all the demons come out. That's not what happened. We have a situation that is dire. I'm not going to lie to you. We do have a situation that is dire, but it was dire before Donald Trump. It would have been dire with Hillary Clinton. It was dire with Barack Obama. It was dire with George Bush. It was dire with Bill Clinton. It was dire with Bush Sr. And it was dire even with Ronald Reagan. Like that dynamic hasn't changed. The only thing that is going on differently right now is that all of the unpopular policies that have been pushed forth, supported, and passed and expanded upon, continuously, the trajectory of America, so to speak, the trajectory of our political system, the trajectory of our policies, those things now have a less palatable face. And that's almost like a complete emotional reaction to Donald Trump. Now, before I say that, that's not to say he doesn't have issues. He definitely does. But when I see people out there protesting, saying, not my president, and he's illegitimate, not my president, fuck Trump, fuck him, and he hasn't even done anything yet. It could be bad. It's not necessarily bad, but it could turn out bad for us. And that's why, again, I'm going to say this again, it's incumbent upon independent media, the progressive people that are out there, to make sure that we get ahead of this, get out there and really, really push, not alignment with neoliberalism, but transformative change. It's my personal opinion that the delusions of reforming the Democratic Party are destructive at this point, because it's going to take time for us to get off the ground with whatever needs to be built or whatever needs to be in place, whatever formation that's going to come about that we need, or that we have to build that we need to do what we need to do. It's going to take time to get that going. And I feel like as long as we're trapped in this delusion of trying to reform something that is wholly unreformable and doesn't want to be reformed, designed not to be reformable, designed to resist capture, as long as we're stuck in that paradigm, and then we view that as the only method by which we can get done what we want to get done, I feel like that delusion, it's that arrogance, that hubris, whatever it is, I feel like that's destructive. Destructive for our cause in the short and long term. And you know what? I'm probably one of the few people that'll tell you that. You know, maybe some other people will tell you that, but I'm just going to be honest with you. That's the way I see it. That being said, if you want to still, you know, go down that road, there are ways by which, you know, you can do it. I'm unsure. It seems to me that everybody's just, I think like they're already screaming and praying. They're calling out. They're praying for Hillary Clinton or whoever the next neoliberal will be, whoever he will be or she will be. They're already saying, they're setting it up. You know, we need more young people, so the neoliberal will be younger. We need more gay, transgender, Black, Latino, Asian. You know, we need more of those people. And it's just like, well, the problem wasn't necessarily the face. The problem was the policy. But they're just trying to sell a different type of face, a younger face, a more intersectional face, you know? And somebody made a good point to me, and I know it's going to sound callous when I say this, but, you know, they made a point where they said, hey, you know, Nick, the problem is, you know, all these people they're coming out of the woodworks now because Donald Trump won. It's like, no, they're not. They've always been there. Those people were just loud and proud with their bigotry. And you know what? I respect being loud and proud with your views, whatever it is. Bigotry, I don't agree with, you know, and I don't respect that. But I do respect boldness, even from people like Donald Trump. You know, I do respect strength. There are leaders throughout history that have been horrible, terrible menaces. But when I read about them and I think about what they've done, where they came from, you know, I respect the strength of character that they had to have to do some of the things that they did at the time. Like when you think about how somebody, you know, revolutionizes something or completely goes differently, moves in a different direction from the school of thought in the time period of when they're born. Like that takes something that progressives need to dig deep and get right now. It takes courage. It takes boldness. That's what we need. And I feel like right now we're kind of in a place where everybody's scared. And you know what? I'm not getting mad at you for being scared. You know, I'm not mad at you for being worried about the uncertain future. That's why I called this the crisis of uncertainty. Everything's uncertain. You know, when the writers write about times of upheaval or revolution, it's always brought about, you know, in times of uncertainty. There's a lot of things changing. There's a lot of things shifting. It can go good. It can go bad. Who knows? We can end up with, you know, some sort of counter-revolutionary force that comes about if we don't seize the narrative, if we don't destroy neoliberalism, if we don't keep them from controlling the opposition and dictating what it's going to be and how it's going to work. You know, I know sometimes just the ease of being able to work with somebody seems like the right thing to do at the time. But in the long run, if you're working with that somebody ends up bringing about the consequences or the material conditions that you were seeking to avoid, perhaps you should probably take the harder road that may be harder up front, but is guaranteed to pay dividends on the long run, you know? So back to when I talked about when I said I was worried. I'm worried. I see all of these people out here, and people that are this is This is both good and bad. People that are not even involved in politics every day. You know, people that don't follow politics every day, they're now all about it. They're all in opposition to Trump. You ask them, what specifically are they opposing? And they'll tell you things like, well, he doesn't respect women. And it's like, well, you know, define respecting women. You know, JFK, huge womanizer, you know, and he's definitely not the first womanizer to sit in the White House. Definitely not the first world leader to be a womanizer, you know, definitely not the first, I'm gonna move on from JFK, but like, you know, definitely not the first person to, you know, do good, even though they are a womanizer. You know, and if you say something like, well, you know, that guy's just an alcoholic. And it's like, you know, people have personal problems, but that doesn't mean they can't achieve great things. That doesn't mean they can't do something for you, you know? So when I start hearing about things like this, I'm like, okay, well, what specifically are you angry about with Donald Trump? And you'll say, well, he appointed a whole bunch of millionaires to his cabinet. Newsflash, Barack Obama appointed a whole bunch of millionaires to his cabinet. And when I bring that up, they say, well, no, he didn't. I was like, well, the head of the FDA is the COO of Citigroup. How is that not the same thing? Well, these people don't really know what they're doing. They're just cronies. I was like, there's Democratic cronies too. And then there's cronies that just float from between parties. They don't even have a party. They just, whatever they're going to do, like wherever that falls, right? Like they're just beloved by both parties. You know, Henry Kissinger, that's one of them. Like people like him, doesn't matter what administration is in there, he's just going to have a spot. You know, he has a nice little chair. It's got a cushion in it, you know, because he's old or whatever. He probably can't sit in a hard chair. But, you know, he's got like a little cushion in there. He just kind of, you know, doesn't really matter, you know, what happens on as far as the presidency goes. But he's always got a spot. Another good one is just like Gloria Steinem. You know, everybody doesn't like really, you know, not a lot of people like feminism, but a lot of people are really okay with Gloria Steinem. Yeah, a lot of people are really okay with that. I don't know what that is. You know, Barack Obama also appointed a lot of Bush appointees to be in his cabinet. You know, this is supposed to be somebody who's offering a radically different vision, a radically different direction. And yet there's a lot of continuity between the personnel and the policies, you know, that he continues with. And then all of a sudden, you know, I've heard people say, well, you know, now Donald Trump's in, you know, he's president now, so, you know, we need to stop talking about Obama. It's like, well, no. You know, Donald Trump doesn't exist in the vacuum. We didn't just get to Donald Trump. He didn't just come out of nowhere. And I've said this again and again and again. He hasn't even done anything yet. The policies that are in place today were in place 4 years from now. I mean, we're in place 4 years before that, and so on and so on and so on. Those policies were already in place. So to blame him for stuff that, you know, other politicians have put in place, you know, really before he's gotten a chance to really have a chance to change them is a little bit short-sighted. But that's not to say, you know, a couple months in, he hasn't made any action towards changing any of that stuff. You know, he doesn't inherit the blame now because, yeah, you're right. Once he's in there and he has a chance to change it, you know, you give him a little bit of time. And if he doesn't change it, okay, now he's going to share the blame because he's continuing it. You know, I did the same thing for Barack Obama. When Republicans lost to Barack Obama, the first thing they wanted to do was say, well, you know, Barack Obama's president now, so everything that goes wrong from this point on is all his fault. No, it's not. It's not all his fault. You know, everything that happens when a president is president, you know, is not all their fault. Some of that they inherit. But guess what? Barack Obama inherited a lot of stuff. And he got to decide what you get to keep and what you throw away. And what did he do? He decided what he was going to keep and he decided what he was going to throw away. First term went by, decided what he was going to keep, decided what he was going to throw away. Second term flows by, decided what he was going to keep, decided what he's going to throw away. And then at the very, very end, you know, what he's going to add. You know, that's just something I put at a forethought, but what has he added? Really, I should have been saying that the whole time I was saying the first two lines. What did he add? And now Donald Trump is inheriting all of that. And it didn't bother many people when Barack Obama had it. It didn't bother many people when Barack Obama kept it. But now that it's in, Donald Trump's bag, when it's in Trump's tower, now it bothers a lot of people. And I'm just saying, if you're really bothered by the policy, you should have been bothered by it when Barack Obama had it. You should have been bothered by it when George Bush had it. And I think that needs to be the message moving forward. Like, he's inherited these things, yes, and he is responsible now when he doesn't make an attempt to roll back some of this stuff. And then, of course, when he attempts to add whatever, rough policy he's going to be throwing out there, we need to also be prepared to resist those things. But, that's going to be on him. But what's going on right now is not on him. This is still Barack Obama's legacy, So I'm not going to harp on that forever. I just think that that's something that we should be looking at and we should be really addressing in some sort of significant way. I want to take some time to kind of shift topics. Give me 1 second. I had an article that I want to talk about. Actually, next week, I just want to not next week. The week after next, February 6th, I'll be having a special guest with me coming to speak. It'll be Professor Darity, and we'll be talking about structural economics, and we'll be talking about wealth inequality and how these things can be addressed. I just want to go ahead and give that a promo right now. And then I want to also remind people that before I started talking earlier today, for those of you who may have came late, this is the first time that we're doing our own stream. So we'll be streaming both to Ben's channel and to my own separate channel. And I want to encourage you guys to go take a moment to like the Takedown. This is so that, I kind of fly from the nest, so to speak, and have my own space where I have, my followers come and speak to me, and I'll do more about interacting with people. And we're also working on possibly having me be able to do a call-in show where I'm going to start taking callers. I think that's going to be really, really interesting. That I'm going to go ahead and do that. So here's what I want to tell you. We have another problem right now. Because of media control, we have what I would call mass culture masking itself as political astuteness. Now, this is a problem because you end up in a situation where you have celebrities that have nothing to say that's worth anything. They have nothing to say about any of this stuff. But somehow they're to be looked to for some sort of political dialogue. Like they have something pertinent to say, like, somebody without I'm not gonna put a gate on it and say without a college degree, but I was gonna say without a deeper innate understanding of the socioeconomic, policies or socioeconomic situations that people face, giving commentary on it as though they know what they're talking about and people listen to it. And I think that we need to really kind of move beyond that. And I think this is not a problem for all communities equally. This is just a problem for some communities where celebrities seem to be what people look to in as a way to get their knowledge. And I don't think that that's necessarily right. Like right now, I was mentioning it earlier, but a lot of people that were not even interested in politics have been force-fed that Donald Trump is the root of all evil. They've been force-fed it, and they believe it. And like everybody, whether they know much about politics, whether they follow politics or not, that's what's on their mind right now. And this is, I've said this before. I probably said this in this show. I have to respect, and we all have to respect and understand mass propaganda and how it works. Because in terms of revolution, in terms of transformative justice, in terms of challenging power, I've said this before already. Popular culture may not always be our friend. It works in our favor sometimes if it's word of mouth. People getting together, meeting in person, getting in groups, expanding the conversation. That's one way it can work. But when you have, just whoever, drop of a dime, change the whole conversation, like smear somebody to death, like bring out the fact that they're unfaithful with their wife and destroy their public image, or something of that nature, when you have people that have the ability to do that, take what they say, twist it into something silly, and then just like nonstop talk about it for 24/7 on every outlet that they possibly can. That's what you're up against. And that's pop culture. You know, celebrities coming out and singing a song or whatever, and then giving you your political lesson for that day. And that may just be some line that they're paid to say. We don't even know. You know, these people are paid to entertain. You know, they're paid to put up an image. They're paid to act. We don't know. You know, and I think one of the worst ones I can think of, Oprah Winfrey. And this is why I'm actually gonna say something about Oprah Winfrey. When she has all these foundations for her philanthropy, because, you know, she does like to give back. She does like to, you know, give out gifts and things of that nature. She was asked by someone, why doesn't she invest that money in Black communities here? And she said, well, they have to want it. And you know what that response was for? It wasn't for the people that actually need help. It was for other people to understand that the underclass here in America doesn't deserve help. They don't deserve charity. They don't deserve to live decent, fulfilling lives. They don't deserve to have opportunities in America. And that's just the system we have it. That's just the system we have here. Bernie Sanders said it best. This is not a compassionate society. In part because you have people like Oprah Winfrey getting out there and telling people that these people don't deserve charity. And that's wrong. And I'm actually looking at the comments here. You guys see me kind of looking at the side here. You know, I had to pull out my chat. But somebody's saying I'm sounding like Antonio Moore. Look, I have a great deal of respect for Antonio Moore and what they do over there. You know, we do have differences of opinion. But I think when he talks about Oprah Winfrey, I definitely hear that critique. And I before he even said it, when I was watching his video, I had to agree, because I knew the exact instance he was talking about. I knew the exact instance he's talking about. And the reason why Oprah Winfrey was even on my mind was because she came to Houston and she rented out like an entire section of downtown. That's how much power, you know, wealth brings. You can rent out an entire section of a city. The traffic was absolutely horrible. I was pissed off because of the traffic, because I was actually working downtown at that time. But she rented out an entire section of the city. That's what kind of wealth she has. Imagine, you know, what good she could do if instead of helping, you know, the kids in Africa, that maybe she did some schools here in America. But you know what? Our kids don't want it. So let me take some time to actually look and see what some of the chat's talking about. And I'll actually answer some questions, since I basically got through everything I want to say, you know, as best I can, and trying to keep it contiguous. So I've gotten through everything. If anybody wants to ask any questions, I have an open, 5 or 10 minutes or so. Other than that, I might go ahead and call it early. Let's see. Somebody asked, do white people go to Miley Cyrus for advice on the working middle class? Well, I mean, probably not. Sad to say, but probably not. But what I want us to also get away from is the idea that the only working class people are white working class people. You know, I looked at some data the other day that showed that Donald Trump's numbers, you know, didn't actually go up with white working class voters. Really what happened was Democratic numbers, you know, with white working class voters went down drastically, and rightfully so. The Democratic Party hasn't done much for working class people in a very, very long time. You know, I would say they haven't done much for working class people. Whew. You know, even the better part of the 21st century, the 20th century, they haven't done much. You know, the second half, they haven't done shit. That's a long time for no victories for working class people to still expect to get their vote. You know, I'm just going to throw that out there. I'm going to check one more. All of a sudden, we got a stage fright. Okay, so I see Terry here saying hi. Hello, Terry. I'm just going to take some time to interact with our guests here, since I actually got through everything I want to say today in like, what's this, 46 minutes? I was moving pretty quick. All right. I don't see anybody have any good questions for me. So I'm going to go ahead and take this time to just remind everybody that truth and justice is not always compatible with power and privilege. If you want to seek truth and justice, it will always mean a diminution of power and privilege. Thank you.